So, you may be wondering, how is it that I chose to play the Dragon in Commander rather than something like Alindra in Commander? How is it that I decided to play something like Nirvana and main that deck rather than maining something like Bruce? Why is it that I decided to go ahead and play the AC the Sea Serpent in Magic rather than something like Teferi in Magic? Well, I'm going to try to answer that question for you today. So what I really want to address in this video is how do you choose the decks that you really want to play for different trading card games? This is going to be more general and generic rather than more specific to Vanguard or to Magic or any of those particular games, because I want to go over this for general people who are just getting into a trading card game, maybe getting into one that they haven't played before, or people who are coming in new to a trading card game and they're like, well, my friend's trying to get me into this thing, but I don't know what deck I should start with, because none of us really did whenever we started any of our trading card games. So I'm going to go over 5 things that helped me decide which deck I want to play or main in each game that I've played. So I want to be clear, first of all, that these aren't in any particular order because these will vary in importance by the person. You're just going to have to figure out which one of these things is most important to you. And you can kind of determine this based on your other experiences, not just in trading card games, like whether you are a really visual person and you really like art, and specific kinds of art or specific kinds of creatures and things like that will help you determine which decks you should play. And actually, that brings me to my first point, which is aesthetic. Aesthetic is actually the reason that I choose a lot of the decks that I play, because I really like particular kinds of creatures and I really like particular kinds of art. And so I choose things like dragons and dinosaurs and other kind of reptilian looking creatures that I like the designs of. Whenever I play anything in Vanguard, my main deck is Nirvana because I really like a lot of Eastern culture and I like dragons, and that kind of blends the two and includes a couple of mechs thanks to Virina. I really like dragons, so I play an Dragon Commander deck. I really like sea serpents, so I play an AC Commander deck. I really like dinosaurs, so I play Calamax in a Commander deck. There are a bunch of different ways that you can kind of look at an aesthetic and figure out whether you like it or not. And this comes down to other things that you like to look at, to play, to enjoy. If you really like art, if you really like things that draw you in via your eyeballs, via your visuals kind of, then maybe you need to choose something that you really like the aesthetics of first, and then figure out the other 4 points from there. And in my case, I don't even necessarily have to love the playstyle the most in order to main that deck if the aesthetics are really, really nice. But aesthetics really can matter when it comes to you playing a card game, because card games have art. TCGs all have really different kinds of art. And so you really want to be paying attention to the things that are on your cards if that's something that's important to you. And if it's not, that's not a bad thing. It just means that this is one point that maybe you can just ignore right here. My second point here is the play style of the deck. Different decks in different TCGs have different play styles. We all know this. This is why trading card games even exist in the first place. If we didn't want different play styles, we'd play Go Fish, where all of us play the same kind of way. Well, we don't. We play trading card games, right? And each trading card game will have different ways of changing up the ways that different decks play. And so you really want to pay attention to the play style. There are 3 general types of play styles, although these can all be implemented different ways depending on the game that you're playing. The first kind is a rush play style, where you just kind of want to, in Vanguard, drop your hand and go. In Magic, you want to have really low cost creatures, flood the field, and just start swinging at your opponent. So rush play styles are really early game focused. They really want to just go ahead and beat down your opponent overwhelmingly in the beginning of the game. The second kind of play style is a tempo kind of play style, where what you do is over the course of the game, you're generating advantage, you're kind of pressuring your opponent throughout the whole game, and your pressure just gets greater and greater over the time of the game. And you eventually get to the point where your forces are just too overwhelming. You're getting too big of numbers, you got too big of a hand, you have too many resources at your disposal, and you just overwhelm your opponent and beat them down. And the third kind of playstyle is more of a stall control kind of playstyle. This doesn't necessarily show up in a lot of games. It's really hard for Vanguard, for instance, to implement this because Vanguard doesn't really have many resources that limit what you get on the board. So a lot of control decks can rush just because you aren't limited, like in Magic, how you are limited by mana on what you can get on the board. So control decks and control variants of decks will try to stall out your opponent's strategy so that you can get to a really big finisher, a really big creature, or a really big one-shot turn that blows your opponent up in one move. So those are the three main, like, overall kinds of strategies that you'll find and playstyles that you'll find in trading card games. So definitely, if something like playstyle really matters to you, then you want to be paying attention to that. If you like playing someone who's really fast, really hits your opponent hard, then in like Smash Brothers, then maybe you want to play something that's a rush playstyle or something that's a tempo playstyle. If you like something that's a little bit more controlling, a little bit more slow play, then maybe you want to try playing a stall deck first, a control deck first. You don't really want to try to go against your other kinds of play styles of what you have. At least in my experience, it's always worked really poorly for me. For instance, I don't really care for control decks all that much personally because I like playing fast, I like playing tempo. So I play a lot of tempo decks and rush decks. I dabble in control sometimes if the art's good enough because aesthetic matters the most to me. But I tend to stick, if I'm dealing just with playstyle, to something that's much more rush, something that's much more aggro, something that's much more tempo generating advantage to blow my opponent up over time with overwhelming force. So my third thing is actually really important to a lot of us, and that's cost. You got to pay attention to how much each individual deck costs, and certain decks are to upgrade to particular points. For instance, right now in Vanguard Overdress, the standard format, you can get a Barrow Magnus deck for like 50 bucks, 70 bucks, something like that. But you're going to get a Bastion deck for like 140. So your budget is going to get in the way sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't matter to you. That's why these 5 things aren't in any particular order, because some people, money's no object. But to some people, money is definitely an object, especially when it comes to playing a trading card game. If I was going into Magic Commander right now, which my wife and I just got into Magic Commander, since I wouldn't want to go straight for the Dragonic Domination deck here, because it's about 300 bucks sealed right now. And if you try to buy the cards individually, you start running up there too, because Commander, it's hard to make 100 cards worth less than, 20 cents each. So you want to pay attention to cost of decks. Do you like the game enough to spend $200 all at once to try the game? Or do you really just want to try the game for 40 bucks and see if you like it and see if you like the aesthetic and the play style of the deck that you just got? Cost is going to be a deciding factor sometimes for you and for me and for everyone else who plays trading card games, and that's just kind of how it is. The fourth thing I wanted to mention here that helps you decide whether you want to play a particular deck or not is the competitive viability of the deck. I have friends who will play decks purely based on their competitive viability. They read the metagame, they want to be able to play the best deck or the best matchup into the best deck, and so they're kind of picking and choosing their decks that they play based on that. Me, I care too much about aesthetic to really let the idea of the best deck get in the way. Other people have to worry about their budget and can't really afford the best deck, and so they're not going to be looking at competitive viability at first. And other people will care more about playstyle than the best deck. If they really like control decks, they're not going to go for a rush deck just because that's the best deck necessarily, because they're not going to have any fun playing best deck. So depending on which of these criteria you prioritize in your own personal choices, this may or may not be important to you. But competitive viability really does affect how different people play the game. If you are a really competitive person and you need to be on top, you play Smash Brothers and you need to play the best character according to the pros every single time you play, then maybe you need to start looking at the competitive viability of the decks that you want to play in any particular TCG. If you couldn't care less, like me, I play Corrin in Smash Brothers. That may surprise a lot of you, but why? He's a dragon, dude. Dragons are the best. If it's not dragon, I'm not playing it. So I play Corrin. I main Corrin. He's my main guy. If he's not competitively like super viable, he's fine. I can play him pretty well, but other people want to play the absolute best characters they can get in Smash Brothers, or play into really good matchups in Smash Brothers, and they just want to win, right? And that's not a bad thing. Choosing a meta deck is a good competitive choice. You're reading the room, you're checking the stats, you're seeing how the tops are going, and you're like, I'm going to play this deck because this is going to win me the most games. And that's a respectable decision. That's something that you need to figure out whether that is what you want to prioritize or not. And if it is, sweet. What you need to do is check out websites like Dexander, where he keeps track of all the different tops and stuff in different tournaments and different locals and everything and the different major tournaments. Stay on Twitter, follow some people on Vanguard Twitter, and you need to check how the tops are going so that you can figure out what the best deck is at the moment. Pick it up, play it. If you're really competitive, do it, go for it, get the best deck. Don't let the other things stand in your way if you just want to be competitive in the game. And don't let anyone tell you that's a bad thing. Just play the best deck. And number 5, the final thing that really matters, mainly in licensed TCGs, is nostalgic attachment to particular cards. We used to play Pokemon. My first Game Boy Advance game that I remember playing was Pokemon Ruby. One of my favorite Pokemon is Rayquaza. One of my other favorite Pokemon is Groudon. When we were playing during the EX format, I played Groudon and Primal Groudon. I wanted to play Groudon, Primal Groudon. I wasn't paying for that. But I wanted to play Groudon, Primal Groudon, so I pulled as many as I could and I played it in my deck just because I like Groudon and Primal Groudon. When we got into the GX era and I had a little bit more money, I was working a better job and I was able to build the deck I wanted, I built Rayquaza GX because I like Rayquaza. He's awesome. One of my favorite Pokemon of all time. I have an attachment to that card, and it was really good. But the thing is, I'd have played that anyway. First of all, Dragon. If it's not Dragon, I'm not playing it. Second of all, I'm really attached to Rayquaza because I attach him to a nostalgic memory of playing Pokemon Ruby with my friends, and we would chase Latios down for the first time, and it took us like 2 or 3 days to get Latios to stay in that stupid ball. So that's just something that I attach good memories to. So I played Rayquaza GX, and I would have whether he was good or not. Sometimes nostalgic attachment in licensed TCGs really matters. In the Digimon card game, when I played that, I played Gallantmon. He's fine, he's not really that great of a card unless you can really stall out your opponent, but I played him anyway because I really like Guilmon, I really like Gallantmon. Those are my favorite Digimon of all time, and Series 3 holds a special place in my heart. So I played that because of the nostalgic attachment. I just don't want anyone who's going to be playing a licensed TCG like Dragon Ball, like Pokemon, or like Digimon to like pick a deck that they're not going to be happy with when they have really an attachment to another deck or another card or another character in a different deck. You don't want to really love Renamon and then go and play like, you know, Omnimon Alter S because it's super competitive if competitiveness isn't what matters to you. You want to play something you like, play something you like. Play Renamon, play something that's built around freaking Mimikyu. I don't care if it's good or not. I think Mimikyu GX is actually fine still, maybe, I don't know. That's the thing. You want to play something that you really like and you're attached to, play that thing and understand that that's what you prioritize. So if you go into your next licensed TCG understanding that, you need to play what you like. You need to play those things that you prioritize. So I hope this video has been helpful in trying to figure out which kind of deck you need to play whenever you get into a game. Number 5 doesn't necessarily apply to everything like Magic or like Vanguard, but it does apply to things like Pokemon and Dragon Ball and Digimon. So pay attention to whether you really care about the nostalgia of the card, of the characters in the game, or whether you really just like a particular aesthetic, you want to be competitively viable, or maybe you just gotta pay attention to your budget right now. And all those things are fine, and you're gonna choose your deck based on which one of those things you prioritize. So figure out what it is you prioritize when you play any other video game, any other board game. Be sure to hit like and subscribe if you really like this video. May do some more videos like this, just kind of talking general TCG stuff. I don't really want it to be this list format. This one just kind of turned out to be that way. And be sure to check out my other content. I'm going to be adding more content as much as I possibly can, and I really appreciate your support. Be sure to let me know in the comments below if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about. I know I got a request for a resource discussion video a while back in trading card games, and I'm going to go over that when I can do a little bit more research into different games I didn't get to play before they were canceled, or different games that are out right now, which I've been playing lots of different games than I had been before. So yeah, that video may be forthcoming soon. I really appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video.